هم فيها حرير وهدوا إلى الطيب من القول وهدوا إلى صراط الحميد. إن الذين كفروا ويصدون عن سبيل الله والمسجد الحرام الذي جعلناه للناس سواء العاكف فيه والباد ومن يرد فيه بالحاد بظلم نذقه من عذاب أليم. وإذ بوأنا لإبراهيم مكان البيت ألا تشرك بي شيئا وطهر بيتي للطائفين والقائمين وركع السجود. وأذن في الناس بالحج يأتوك رجالا وعلى كل ضامر يأتينا من كل فج عميق ليشهدوا منافع لهم ويذكروا اسم الله في أيام معلومات على ما رزقهم من بهيمة الأنعام فكلوا منها وأطعموا البائس الفقير ثم ليقضوا تفثهم وليوفوا نذورهم وليطوفوا بالبيت العتيق. صدق الله العلي العظيم.
Can we have another loud salawat for Brother Mohsin, inshallah? Salawat. Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Just once again, I want to go over a couple of announcements, upcoming events. One, the big one coming up, if we have Camp Noor registration are open, weekend of December 15th to the 18th for ages 17 and older. If you have not applied yet, please apply. The organizers really take your applications into consideration when they're forming the camp and the workshops and the activities. So please do apply ahead of schedule, and I believe there's a discount as well if you apply early enough. They have fundraising. They have financial aid. I'm sorry. Thank you. They have financial aid available for those who need it, inshallah. So we have great scholars coming, including Sayyid Asad Jafri. So please go and apply as soon as possible. And then the other big event coming up is on December 2nd. We have the SBI, our Sunni brothers at SBI have invited us for the Prophet's birthday. So encourage everyone to attend. We went last year. It was a great event. They really were great hosts. So inshallah, do please try and make that as well. And then one last thing is the usual. We do have kids program. Every program here at SABA, we do have a children's program. So if you're interested or interested for your child, please look at the updated locations, inshallah. And this is unfortunately our last night here with Sayyid Asad. He'll be flying back tomorrow. We'd just like to thank him on behalf of SABA, SYG, all the SABA boards, for being here with us for these past few nights and giving us such great lectures. We hope to continue to learn from him and have him come in the future, inshallah. Please help me invite him up with a loud salawat.
The cliff. And I've talked about that in detail in the past few nights. I don't want to repeat that. We completed the verse yesterday, and in wrapping up this discussion today, I'd like to talk a little bit about the state of the heart of the human being, the qalb inside the human being. Because ultimately, iman and submission comes from the concept of, it comes from the springs of the heart of the human being. A lot of us have information inside of our mind, our aql, our intellect is there, we gather information, but until and unless the heart invests in that information, it will not be converted into iman and into taslim or submission. So the heart is important. And so today, with your permission, as a closing speech, a closing discussion, I'd like to talk a little bit about the heart. The Quran talks about the heart in various situations. And I'd like to share with you one tradition which we'll expand upon in today's lecture from our sixth Imam, Imam Jafar al-Sadiq, alayhi salatu wasalam. Muhammad. First of all, we ended off yesterday talking a little bit about that dua from Surah Ali Imran, verse number 8. We talked about Zagh, we talked about Ladunka Rahma, if all you remember that discussion from last night. And I said that this natural phenomenon that we go through, where we go up and down in our iman, that really is a product of the heart. The word qalb or qalaba in Arabic literally means fluctuation. Where now we have this entity inside of us, inside of our internal kingdom, that fluctuates. It goes from one state to another. In fact, the ulama described the qalb to go through either idbar or iqbal, two states. Where either that state of the qalb is where it is welcoming Allah's ibadat, iqbal. For example, words like istiqbal in Urdu that's used, and also in Farsi that's used, is what? The idea of you welcoming somebody, right? Istiqbal happens when both parties are there. For example, when I landed on Thursday, the person who was getting me from the airport was there for my istiqbal, to welcome me from the when I landed. If I arrive and he's not there, or he's there and I don't land, then the istiqbal doesn't happen. It's two-way. All these, of course, come from the idea of iqbal. Iqbal means to welcome, to accept it, to kind of put it inside of your heart. The other opposite result of the heart is idbar, which is quite the opposite. If iqbal is welcoming something, idbar is to move away from something. So if I give you a little bit of a practical example, let's say, for example, in our worship, there are moments where our heart goes through iqbal for the worship. There are moments where it goes through idbar. There are moments where we run to the musalla, and the musalla feels great. It feels like there's an ascension. I feel a movement inside of me. I stay on the musalla a little bit after the salat and pray some du'as and read some Quran. I feel like I want more. That's iqbal. Then there are moments where, I just have to get through this salat somehow. And the moment I'm done my last raka'at and last sajda, I wrap up the musalla and I'm done. I cannot get off the musalla fast enough. Right? That's called idbar. And so this is a natural phenomenon inside of our hearts. Right? And that's why it's called the qalb. It's because it literally means a fluctuator, right? Ya muqallib al-qulub, we call Allah. The fluctuator of hearts, we call him. Okay? So the first thing I want all of us to realize is that we don't need to get down and hopeless and stressed out when things are not as high in our iman as they should be. And I'm not giving you a ticket to not do your wajibat, but there are moments where you want to do your mustahab acts. There are moments where you just want to make sure you get the bare minimum out of the way. That's why Imam Ali in Nahj al-Balagha says, if you don't have that state of the heart where you want to run towards Allah, just do what's farz on you, do what's wajib on you, and move on. But the moment that your heart is ready, it's in that state of iqbal, then do as much as you can. Read as much as you can. Do as much mustahabat as possible. Because right now your heart is yearning for it. It's calling for it. Sometimes, we put so much pressure on ourselves when it comes to worship that we make mustahab things wajib on us, and it becomes a burden on us. Remember, mustahab comes from hub in Arabic. Has to be done with love. It's not compulsory. It's good, it's great, but it has to be done with the right state of the heart. If the state of the heart is not there, and all of us know when we are really dragging ourselves towards the musalla and when we're running towards the musalla, we all know that state. When you're in that state where there is iqbal happening, then do as much as you can. But if that state isn't there for whatever reason, then don't burden the nafs. Don't burden your soul. Don't try to shove that love down its throat. It has to be accepted. It has to have this great feeling. Oftentimes, the very simple example that the ulama use is that sometimes when there's a hukum or command from your parents and you do a little bit extra than what they expect. So for example, if your mom comes to you and says, it's Saturday morning, your room has been dirty the entire week. Simple example for my kids. And she says, clean your room. I want you to spend Saturday morning, this morning, cleaning your room. And you go all out, mashallah. You hang up the clothes, you make the bed, you vacuum, you wipe down the dresser, you spray the mirror, and then on top of that, you go and you clean the bathroom as well. Right? It's a miracle on Saturday. Then she checks if you have a fever, and she thinks something is wrong. All these things happen. What makes her the most happiest is what? Is the bathroom. Why? Because you did that out of love for me, she'll say. The room is something I asked you for. That's wajib. I mean, I asked you for it. Fine. If you don't do it, I'll be upset. You did it? Okay, thank you. But the bathroom that you did out of love is something that I will enjoy. And you'll enjoy doing the bathroom because you did it out of your own love, not out of the fact you're carrying out an obligation. That's how mustahab acts should work. So let's not get too wound up, guys, when you guys have these moments where, you know, I just can't drive myself to do the mustahab acts. Then don't do them. Don't do them. Right? So the qalb will go through these ups and downs. It's actually called a fluctuating heart. That's number one. Number two is to understand the different states of the hearts and build towards making a heart that is sahih and salim. The ayat I read for you, a very famous verse in the Quran in the khutbah, that talks about the fact that يَوْمَ لَا يَنْفَعُ مَالٌ وَلَا بَنُونَ, that nothing will benefit you on the day of judgment, not your property or your mal or your wealth, nor your children. Nothing will benefit you, illa, except for the one who goes towards Allah with something called the qalb salim, a heart that's free of evil, a heart that's secure of any sort of blemishes. Doesn't mean that you're infallible. It means that you've strengthened the heart enough to say that you are more in the state of iqbal than you are in idbar, if that makes sense. And that comes with practice. I talked about the fact that father who bribed the son to do namaz shab, only to get to the point where now that son falls in love with namaz shab without the bribe. Okay, and that has to be done. As parents in the audience, if you have very young kids, 7, 8, 9-year-olds, it's okay to kind of push them and offer them a candy or offer them some sort of reward after they've read a page of Quran. Because they won't realize the effect of the Quran or that act, but you will. And later on in life, it'll become such a habit that they can't live without it. Fine, they'll do it for the candy initially. But eventually, inshallah, they'll get to a point where they'll do it without the candy. That's why Imam Ali in Nahj al-Balagha talks about the levels of worship. All of you know the hadith very well. There are people who are the tujar, who are the abd, who are the ahrar. Very quickly. Right? Remember the candy example. If you read one page of Quran, I'll give you a candy. If you memorize this dua, short dua, I'll give you a candy, for example. Right? Now you'll say, oh, where's the khulus? Where's the fi sabilillah? He's 8 years old, Baba. He won't find fi sabilillah in that dua. He won't. He goes, look, I just get to this page and this candy in front of me is waiting for me. I want the candy. Meanwhile, his heart by itself is cleansing itself because of the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He doesn't realize that, but he will eventually. And sooner or later, he'll read the Quran, he'll read a juz of Quran, and the candy won't be there. But initially, it has to be there. When Imam Ali talks about the fact that sometimes men worship Allah for what? For candy as well. They are the tujjar, the businessmen. I'll offer you my worship, Allah. I want heaven in return. I'll give you my fajr, I'll give you my khums, I'll give you my hajj, I'll give you everything that's hard for me, but in return I want that candy of heaven. Allah says, no problem. No problem. I mean, the sheer way that Allah describes Jannat for us in ahadith, in the Quran, is all materialistic. There's rivers and there's milk and there's hooties and there's God knows what else, and we're just salivating. We're like, oh my God, it sounds amazing. It's such a materialistic way of looking at heaven. When in reality, the highest level of heaven is that qurbat to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is that closest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? The highest level was the fact that your mom walked in and you can't wait to see the look on her face when she goes to your bathroom. You can't wait. And in that and that one moment where she just glows, you capture that moment, and for that moment, that's your heaven. That's why in Dua Kumel, Imam Ali says what? Sarbatu ala adabik fakayfa asbur ala firaqik. That suppose Allah, I can endure your punishment, your lashing, the squeezing of the grave, the hellfire. I'll take all of that. How do you expect me to endure separation from you? Separation from you. That I do an act, and because of that act now, I have earned the disappointment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That to Ali alayhi salam was more devastating than any whipping or any lashing, any scorpion, any squeeze on the grave could be. I'll take all that. That's easy. That's child's play. I don't want you to move away from me. Right? So the closer he got to Allah, that was his heaven. The further he got, that was his hell. Nothing to do with anything else. But there are people, he says in hadith, that do it for the candy. And their entire life they do it for the candy. And he says, by the way, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. That's also a level of worship. But then he talks about levels of worship. The highest level is what? Is that of the ahrar, the free individual, who neither looks at the gift of heaven or the fear of hell. He worships Allah because he's layiq of that worship. He's worthy of that worship. I don't care about heaven and hell. Leave the candy alone now. I do it. Why? Because Baba, I now found in this namaz-e-shab more than your 10,000 tamans gave me. That's the ultimate level. But that will not get there unless the candy is there to begin with. Now, if you have a 35-year-old son who needs a candy or a lollipop to read the Quran, that's a different story. At that moment, that's a problem. But not an 8-year-old or a 9-year-old. We're trying to build this submission from, inshallah, from ground number one. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. I want to really expand on the hadith of our sixth Imam. Inshallah, we'll get to a certain level. He says, "Inna al-qulub al-arba'a." There are 4 types of hearts. Inshallah, you're with me. Inshallah, yes, yes. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. It's hard to tell in this crowd if you guys are with me or not. Who and ha, grunt here and there would be good. Guys, I don't know if you're asleep with your eyes open or you're with me, I have no idea, but inshallah. 4 types of hearts. Let's go through these hearts one by one, identifying what heart we aspire to be. And I'll talk about how one gets to that heart as well. We know the importance of it. In this dunya, as elders especially, all of you have lived your life for your children and for what you own. And yet the Quran says, Mal and Banun are nothing for you on the Day of Judgment. You're like, I just spent my entire 65 years for my mal and for my banun. Now you're saying it's nothing. So we understand the idea of the qalb, the heart, making sure it's purified is very, very important. Right? When our sixth Imam says, for example, al-qalbu haramullah wa la tuskin haramullah ghayrullah, that the heart, the qalb is the sanctuary of Allah, is the haram of Allah. And do not allow anything to reside in that haram except for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It becomes a very important discussion then. Right? We're looking for Allah here and there, here and there. Sometimes it's inside of you. When Imam Ali says, look, inside of the insan is the sickness and the cure. That sometimes what the insan searches for outside of him, here, there, it's inside of him the entire time. It's a matter of him looking inward sometimes and not selling himself short. You're not a ma'muli existence. You're not a normal, everyday existence. Inside of you is an alami akbar. It's a grand universe, he says. Right? So there's this entire entity inside of us that can take us as far as we want to go. It's a matter of us training that heart, building that heart, and purifying that heart. Through things like tawbah and repentance, and through things like forgiveness, etc., etc. So these 4 types of hearts. He says, Al-qalbu fihi nifaq wa iman, that's number 1. The heart that has both hypocrisy and faith inside of it. Number 2, al-qalbi mankus. Number 3, al-qalbi matbu'. Number 4, al-qalbi azhar. And I'll explain these 4 inshallah to the best of my ability. Now, I can go into a lot of detail, and I don't have time for that. Just enough for a surface level discussion is sufficient for all of you, mashallah, to run with. Number 1 is the obvious one. There are moments where that individual who has this heart, sometimes he has hypocrisy, sometimes he has iman, and he flips between these 2. And I'm sure all of you can recognize people who have that kind of heart. And maybe perhaps that heart sums up what Surah Hajj has been talking about, that as long as there is khair, there is iman. When there is fitna, there is nifaq. As long as there's goodness and I have faith, but the moment there is a test or a difficult test, then there is hypocrisy. Now the very same Allah that I was praising yesterday because things were good is the same Allah now I challenge today because he decided to test me. This is a heart that fluctuates between nifaq and iman. That's number 1. That's easy enough to understand. What is al-qalb mankus? Mankus is the example of It literally means to invert something on its head, is mankus. Okay? And I'll give you a couple examples and try to expand that a little bit, inshallah. Before that, recite one salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, please. I don't know if I told you guys this example or not. Perhaps I did. I don't know. But I remember 1 year when I was in Qom, 1 year it snowed in Qom. It doesn't snow in Qom usually. It gets cold for sure, it doesn't snow. Tehran snows, Mashhad snows, but not Qom. And that was during the years that I was learning the Farsi language. So I was in a linguistic school with several different countries represented. We're all learning Farsi in one class. So for example, if I had 15 guys in my class, there would sometimes be 15 different countries that are represented. Now, it snowed one day, and I vividly remember that day that it snowed. And I mean, I see snow almost every day in Toronto, right? You guys think that 12 years or 12 months out of the year it's all snowing there, right? That we ski to school and all these things that you guys think. So dog sleds and that kind of stuff, right? So snow wasn't a big deal for me. But there were other brothers, let's say, like from Pakistan, for example, who'd never seen a snowflake. These guys ran out of the classroom because there's some white stuff falling from the sky. And they were amazed. They just couldn't believe it. And so they would go into their rooms and they would grab empty cups. They would start collecting the snowflakes in their cups. I kid you not. And these guys are catching the snowflakes, and it was just an amazing sight to see how they're wowed by snow. And they've never seen it before, right? They've never seen it before. Anyways, I want you to imagine now, everyone is out there with their cups and they're collecting snowflakes. One guy has his cup inverted. Okay? He's out there trying to catch snowflakes. Okay? It's hitting the bottom of the cup and it's melting on the spot. He's out there, he thinks, okay, I have a good amount of snowflakes. He's trying to catch them. They go inside and they compare the snowflakes. Lo and behold, this guy's cup is empty because it was inverted. The snow was there, the time was there, he was there, the cup was there. Everything was ready to gather the snowflakes. What wasn't was the state of the actual cup itself. It was inverted. The snowflake would bounce off the top and either bounce off or melt right there on the spot. That's one example. The other example I have are for my parents in the audience. My parents who sometimes have older children. A lot of you have voiced your concerns to me over the past visits that I've been here. Month of Ramadan I was here, before that I was here as well. And a lot of you are worried about your children. Doesn't matter how old your child is. Your child could himself be a father or a mother, but you're still worried about your children. And some of you really take everything upon yourself. This is a note for new parents as well in the audience, please. A lot of you, especially my parents who have older children, you take a lot upon yourself. You lose sleep over everything. So you'll say that, my child is 27 years old, he's not on the path, doesn't come to SABA, doesn't go to the center, doesn't really pray salat, she doesn't wear hijab, she doesn't really pray, she's not really involved, blah, blah, blah. Where did I go wrong? Where did I go wrong? How could I do this? I'm a horrible mother, I'm a horrible father. I'm embarrassed as a parent, they would say. And while I understand the concern, sometimes as parents we have to understand, and I have 3 kids myself, we have to understand that tarbiyah, upbringing of a child, is both give and take. Just because you give the right tarbiyah doesn't mean that the child takes that right tarbiyah. I hope that makes sense to all of you. There are some times where you have 4 siblings in one home and there are 4 different unique personalities. The tarbiyah has been the exact same. Some have taken it, some haven't taken it. Some have taken everything their parents have given them and they have converted it into something great. Some have ignored everything their parents said. So there comes a time where the parent has to tell themselves that, look, honestly, I've done everything I possibly could to give this child a good running start when it comes to the path of Allah. If he or she chooses to have his cup inverted and not accept my tarbiyat, then so be it. Because sometimes that's exactly what it is. There are kids who believe that their parents cannot help them in this part of the world. My dad doesn't know, Said, how difficult it is. He barely knows the language. He has no idea how things work here. He comes from a different lifestyle, a different era, a different country, blah, 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 this and that. And they undermine or underestimate the power of the wisdom of the parents. And while I'm here, let me make this point here. It's not my topic, but very, very briefly. One of the biggest regrets I have in my personal life, and I share that with you only to learn a lesson, is that by the time I was able to recognize that my father was a source of wisdom for me, by the time I was able to recognize that, he left this world. So the last year of his life, him and I got so tight that I would come to him for everything, guys. Everything. Work-related, school-related, community-related, everything. And I couldn't believe the advice he was giving me. It was incredible. Because, I'll tell you why. Number one, don't underestimate the power of experience. Number one. Okay? Yes, they might have been raised in Iran or in Pakistan or India or Iraq or Lebanon. That's fine. Doesn't mean that they have just kind of, done things, how you think they've done things. No. They've lived an entire life. They've seen things. They've done things that you and I could never do. Number one. They picked up from their respective countries and they came here and they brought you here and they learned the language and they worked odd jobs and did everything so you and I can have a better life. Something you and I can't do. We'll move state to state. Even that's difficult. But to come up and let's say move to, as I often say, Mongolia. Go to Mongolia and set up shop in Mongolia, guys. Mongolia. Learn Mongolian, dress Mongolian, eat Mongolian. Deal with the Mongolian akhlaq. Nobody here would do it. Nobody here would do it. But our parents did that. And yet we still believe that everyone knows me. My parents know way what I asked my dad. He has no idea what's going on. And I believe that as well. My father was a classic immigrant father. Wasn't, way to go, son, good job, buddy, pat in the back guy. He wasn't. He wasn't. I can count on my fingers how many times maybe he hugged me. And that was fine. But when I sat him down and I said, look, Dad, I need your time. I need your advice. This is my problem. That man blew me away. But he blew me away too late in my life. And I made too many mistakes because I wouldn't go to him thinking that, you know what? Come on, man. You're a Pakistani man. What do you know about Toronto and the West? So sometimes as my parents, I really want to get this point across to all of you. You guys are amazing parents. Some of you have done everything you possibly can. And sometimes that child does not accept that tarbiyah, doesn't accept the advice. Why? His cup is inverted. It's bouncing off of the bottom of the cup. And another child where you're giving him, his cup is filled with snowflakes. Why? Because the cup was right side up. And he ate it up, man. He was collecting. He had the most snowflakes of everybody. Because everything was there. He had the right tools. Don't underestimate this idea. As my parents, don't lose sleep. I know it's tough for me to say and hard for you to do, but I'm saying don't take it upon yourself if your 27, 28-year-old isn't on the path. If you've convinced yourself, I've given him all the right tools. I brought him to a community. I taught the Quran, Sunday school, gave him a good name, good akhlaq, good environment inside the home. Inshallah, then everything will work out. If he didn't accept it, then that's between him and Allah. You don't need to lose sleep over it or cause stress in your home over it. The heart is no different. The heart can also be inverted, the hadith says. Al-qalb mankus is a heart that's inverted, where there is hidayat coming at you. There's reminders coming at you, dhikr coming at you. The sunnah of the Prophet coming at you, but it's bouncing off the top and going somewhere else. It's not sinking inside. Because the heart has not been turned properly for it to accept that. Now, why is that? For several reasons. Ego, ignorance, sin, shaitan, many, many factors. The more we humble ourselves, the more that we kill this ego inside of us, the more the heart begins to turn right side up and accept advice from anybody, This movement nowadays, I'm not sure if it's here or not, but this idea where, they'll only listen to, let's say, for example, advice from a certain type of person who's a certain aqidah, a certain belief, a certain this and that. If the preacher is a Sunni brother, you'll say, no, tune him out. Even if he is your professor at work or at school who's a non-Muslim and he's giving you wisdom, take that wisdom. Look at the hadith by Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam. Please salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. He says sometimes wisdom enters the heart of the munafiq. Sometimes it does. And I'll paraphrase the hadith for you. And that knowledge is very, very uncomfortable in that heart. Okay? It's like sometimes when your parents drag you to a place that you don't want to go to and you sit in that guy's house and you're looking at the clock saying, what time can we leave? And you're just uncomfortable. You want to just get out of there, get out of there. That's how knowledge or wisdom is inside the heart of the munafiq. And it begins to, they say, it flutters inside and itching to get out of that heart. When finally it gets out of the heart, it searches for the heart of the mu'min. And the mu'min grabs it and puts it inside, and then it's kind of, okay, I'm home now. I'm relaxed now. Meaning what the mafhum of the hadith is what? That even from a munafiq, you should take that wisdom out and place it inside of your heart. Let alone your parents, let alone the ulama, let alone your friends, all these things are there. But there were people who are around the Holy Prophet, there are people around the Imams, there are people today, for example, where there is constant hidayat coming their way, but khatama ala qulubihim, their hearts are sealed. There's nothing happening. Because they've chosen that path. They don't want to hear anything about akhlaq. Even on this member sometimes. That if we talk about islah and reform and khudsazi and self-building and recognize yourself, then people don't want to hear it. They want to leave sometimes these gatherings feeling great about themselves. I am Jannati, I am heaven. No doubt about it. I've come for Hussein. Hussein will get me into heaven. When someone like me sits and says, I'm sorry, you're not Jannati. You have a lot of work to do. Oh, this guy sucks, man. Don't invite him again. Right? We had a Dars Akhlaq every Saturday in the house. Dars Akhlaq would come. Ustad Tawakkul was his name. A beautiful Ustad. He would come every single Saturday, and the first thing he would say is, if you leave my Dars feeling good about yourself, I haven't done my job. There should be a sour taste in your mouth for a constant desire to better yourself. I'm not saying to be down on yourself. There is a fine line, I always say this to you guys, between self-worth and self-worship. Very, very thin line between the two. Islam is all about self-worth. Qadr shanasi, understand your value. Don't kill yourself, don't step on yourself, don't think you're a doormat, have some self-respect, but don't worship yourself. Don't think you're the man. Don't think that I've done enough for heaven. I've had 18-year-olds come to me and say, Sayyid, I know that I've done enough in this world to get into heaven. Damn, really? At 18? I don't see God putting me in the hellfire. It's like, whew. Can you imagine now? Any sort of talk about Islah reform, he'll say, oh, this speech was for you and you and you and you and you in the back and you in the front, but not for me. I'm Jannati, mashallah. And sometimes you have the ulama, I'm sorry, coming and telling you that yes, this adab of the qabr, this question and answer in the grave, they're not for you, not for the Shias of Ali. They're for the others. The Shias of Ali get a free pass, mashallah. Just say, Ya Ali, Ya Hussein, shed one tear, mashallah, you're in Jannah. That's all it takes. It's very, very cheap Jannat. Right? So we have to be very, very careful. It's all about the idea that, yes, sometimes there is wisdom coming at you and you're not accepting it. That's the second qalb, al-qalb mankus. And the biggest cause of that, the ulama say, is the ego. Is the ego. As I've said before, you don't know that you don't know that you don't know. Right? So any talk of sort of knowledge or ilm, no. I know everything. So you're not willing to accept that. Number 3. Al-qalb matbu. Al-qalb matbu is the opposite of maftuh. It's a sealed heart, a closed heart. The heart that's dark inside and dark outside. Nothing goes out of that heart, nothing goes in that heart. And that is a constant form of what? Denying Allah's guidance. Right? When you tell a child, don't do this, don't do this, don't do that, he'll start to tune you out and you'll stop reminding him. Right? Many times people who have this verse in the Quran that says Allah guides who He wishes and misguides who He wishes, a lot of people have a huge problem with that. That how come Allah can pick and choose? Allah doesn't pick and choose, man. It's not like He's, out of a hat, okay, guiding, misguiding, guiding. No, not like that. The tafsir of the verse is what? That Allah guides those who wish to be guided and misguides those who wish to be misguided. There are people who want nothing to do with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are people who don't want to work for their akhirah. As I mentioned in the very first speech, there are people who are completely content with the way that everything is going now. Right? When Surah Al-Araf talks about those people who are majority in the heavens, in the hellfire from the jinn and the men, لَهُمْ قُلُوبًا لَا يَفْقَهُونَ بِهَا. They have hearts, but nothing infiltrates inside that heart. Nothing is deep inside that heart. Everything is surface level. Everything is, Muslim by name. Even that sometimes changes. Nothing. These are people whose hearts are sealed. Allah has sealed them because they've chosen that path. They don't want guidance. They don't want to give guidance. That's fine. That's your choice. Don't complain when you come to Allah with your heart sealed on the Day of Judgment. The last one is Al-Qalb Azhar. An illuminated heart, the heart of a mu'min, inshallah. Where now this heart is beaming with light. And the hadith says, he goes on to explain that this heart is that heart that not only illuminates the path of his own self, he illuminates the path of others as well. A very communal heart. We have hadith that says that there are moments where you are with somebody, you're with a friend of yours, where you are reminded of Allah. In fact, one of the criteria of a good friend is that when you are in their presence, you are reminded of Allah. He brings out the best in you. You discuss beautiful discussions that you wouldn't have with anybody else. When you're there and you're sitting, let's say, in your basement, you're just chilling, hanging out, watching TV, it's time for salat. He slowly, quietly gets up, prays in the corner, comes back, doesn't make a big announcement, doesn't call for the adhan, goes and prays. You see him, you get up and you go pray. Otherwise, maybe you would have delayed it. Those kind of friends are amazing to have. These are people that have what? Al-Qalb Azhar. Not only did he illuminate his heart, but in the process, he also lit up your heart as well. These are people that are true friends. The dhikr of Allah. Don't have a ring of tasbih when you hang out. Hang out. Have a good time. Laugh. Enjoy yourself. Watch the Niners lose. Do whatever you want to do. They're 0-9, by the way, but it's okay. Sorry to remind you of that. Yeah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. This is what the heart of a mu'min does. And it leads me to another discussion which I want to just touch on. And these four hearts now, the one that has both hypocrisy and faith in it, the one that is inverted, the one that is sealed, and the one that is illuminated. And naturally our goal is that fourth Al-Qalb Azhar. But identify which heart we are at individually. Is it the case that when wisdom comes towards me, when some advice comes to me, I first look at who's telling me and not what's being said? Because that's not the way of the Ahlul Bayt. The way of the Ahlul Bayt is it doesn't matter who's telling you. Take it from anybody. From China to a kafir, to a munafiq, to an alim. Doesn't matter. Just take it. If it's for your benefit, take it. Like the hadith says, somehow it got inside of him. It's looking to get rescued. Rescue that ilm. It doesn't belong in the heart of a munafiq. It belongs in your heart. Let it be very comfortable inside your heart. But take that from your Jewish professor or from your atheist discussion. Doesn't matter. It's okay to take knowledge from other sources. It's okay. You're not taking iman or tafsir or guidance. You're taking knowledge. That's fine. But identify which heart level you're at and how to get to that Al-Qalb Azhar. That final heart where you are now illuminating the path of yourself and the path of others. We have to begin now to adopt this communal aspect of the deen and stop allowing ourselves to be captured by this Western society that talks about the individual. It talks about the individual, right? Market yourself. That's all it takes. Don't worry about the person beside you. We don't believe in the idea that you walk past someone who's drowning and you sit there and you say, oh, that's tough luck. It's a good thing I know how to swim. And you just walk away. Or you know that the person beside you, or you know somebody, let's say in your community, is struggling. You can tell he's not the same. But you know that you're adopting the mind your own business mentality. So I don't even ask him. I know the guy's struggling, man. He's different. She's different. Doesn't come anymore. When she comes, she's down. She's quiet. She's in the corner. She's completely changed, but I don't have the atmosphere around her to ask her, is everything okay? And sometimes that's what they wait for. They're walking through that door, hoping that somebody will ask me, is everything okay? So I can sit there and tell them what's wrong. We don't have that in our community. Amal bil ma'ruf is a lost obligation. We live in an era of the glamorization of sin. We forget sinning, we publicly announce that we've sinned. And we wait for what? We wait for acknowledgement. And we get acknowledged sometimes. I know sisters who take off their hijab, mashallah, glamour shots posted on Facebook, and the comments from the hijabi sisters. Oh my God, you look gorgeous. Oh my God, your hair's wavy. Oh my God, did you color your hair? I mean, I'm sorry to say this. I'm not saying be rude. I'm saying at least don't comment and give a thumbs up and a like to a sister who took off her hijab and now she's, mashallah, out there. I mean, she really took it off. But that's what we're at. And again, it goes back to a hadith by our Holy Prophet that said there'll come a time where what is considered to be munkar is now ma'ruf, and what was once ma'ruf is now munkar. What was once virtuous is vicious. What was once vicious is now virtuous. And that's exactly the era that we live in, guys. Exactly the era that we live in. Whether it's being shoved down your throat with Netflix or with the latest TV shows, any show right now that's worth watching, there's an element of fitna in that show. Something is being shoved down your throat. You got to be very, very careful. Right? This is not a one-man battle. You're up against a very vicious enemy like Shaitan. And he has an army behind him and you are by yourself. It has to be a communal effort to save everybody around you. You know, the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, here's a hadith that talks about this, and then I'll move towards Masab after this, and that is this. He says that, and you've heard this before, just a reminder to all of you, he uses the analogy of a boat, of a ship in water. And so I want you to imagine that you are in that ship, in that boat, in the middle of the ocean, the deepest portion of the ocean, and you are with your fellow boat companions, and one guy has an axe. In the corner of the boat, he's slowly but surely axing a hole inside the boat. Right? And you see him, and you have two choices, right? You can walk over and say, oh, look what he's doing. Good luck to you. And you walk away. Or you say, look, don't do that. Please stop doing that. If that hole gets any bigger, the boat will sink and we'll sink with it. The Prophet says the boat is Islam and the people in the boat are the Muslims. You have to worry about the state of the boat. And if one person is damaging the boat in front of you, you have to stop that because you will be directly affected by it. We have to stop living individually, guys, and start to adopt the communal effort. If that means, just a small text, bro, I haven't seen you in a couple of months, everything okay? You would be amazed how much that does to a person. Like I said, they might not be coming here for a certain reason, and that little small text, that one-liner might open the door a crack for them to come. So you know what? Somebody is thinking about me. Sometimes they wait, man. Sometimes people wait and say, I was waiting for someone, one of you guys, to reach out to me. And we don't because, you know what? We're scared someone say, mind your own business. It's none of your business. And we've really adopted that Western philosophy to each his own. That's not the Islamic approach. We're not individuals, guys. We're an ummah. We're a family. We have to worry about the person beside us. Now you'll say, oh, Sayyid, I'm have a tough time keeping myself out of the hellfire. I have to worry about him beside me. Sometimes keeping yourself out of the hellfire is keeping somebody else also out of the hellfire. Sometimes your iman is building while you build someone else's iman. So, this is all in developing that al-qalb azhar, that illuminated heart, where now you're concerned about that person's journey, and that by itself makes you concerned about your own journey. Sometimes we're great, we're absolutely fantastic at fixing everyone else's problems. Person comes to us and has, this problem, we have great advice. Some of you, mashallah, are great listeners and great advisors for others, but not for yourself. That's where we get stuck. We don't know how to advise ourselves. We don't know where to start. So sometimes if you give the advice enough times, you start to hear yourself and say, wait a second, that advice might apply to me. So now you're advising him and you're advising yourself at the exact same time. It's beautiful. That's the whole idea of the communal effort towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We know many of us on social media, we see the fact that people are degrading and they're going down this way towards shaitan. And yet we don't say anything. Be very, very careful about that. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So part of the tools that we need to complete this whole equation of complete and absolute submission is the state of your heart. It requires a lengthy ashra, but at least enough of a touch to know that there are categories of the heart according to hadith. And identifying which category that we're at and where we want to end up to and all the tools we need for that reason. And part of that is that we need to look out for each other. We need to look out for each other. It makes it a little bit easier. The hadith says that when a wolf approaches a pack of sheep, it looks for that one stray from the pack and attacks that one sheep as opposed to attacking the entire group. As long as you stay with the group, you're good. When you start to branch off and become the individual, then you're prey for shaitan. He won't touch you if you're part of a group. You're too strong for him. But when you're individual, you're open now for business for him. So stay connected. Make your circle of influence a very strong one. And be concerned about each other. Amal bin Ma'ruf is a wajibat in Islam. It's an obligation with conditions, of course, but it's an obligation that has been forgotten in this era of the glamorization of sin. And it's inshallah vital that we do this. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. As I mentioned, tonight, of course, is the night of the shahadat of our 8th Imam. Just a few points about him and his masa'ib. And those of you who have been to Mashhad for his ziyarat, may Allah accept that ziyarat. May Allah invite you for the first time or keep inviting those who have been, inshallah. You know and you've heard that the grace and the love of Imam Radha towards his zawar, towards those who visit him, is amazing. And a very famous tradition by him who says that the one who comes to visit me, I will visit him in 3 stations in the hereafter. The first station is when the question and answer period begins by the 2 angels. I'll be there beside him or her. The second moment is when the book of his deeds, this kitab-e-amal, is given to this individual. I'll be there. And the third is when he, of course, crosses this metaphorical bridge to enter heaven, inshallah. I'll be there with him as well. Immense love he has. If you read some of the wordings in his ziyarat when you go, inshallah, there are beautiful ways that he says, and you can see, those of you who have been, there is this amazing atmosphere of serenity, of security, of hospitality in the haram of Imam Radha, one of, if not the biggest harams in the world, open 24 hours, constantly being cleaned. The lunch of Imam Radha is very, very famous. And he says in his books that when you leave your homeland to come to say your salams to me, I will treat you with the utmost respect. And even though you are gharib, and gharib here in Arabic means that you are away from your home, not the gharib in Urdu. He's gharib al-ghuraba because he was somebody who was away from his home. He was detached from his homeland. He was a traveler, or he was, a foreigner, let's say. The same way that you are gharib from your land, I will not treat you the way I was treated when I was gharib, he says. He's one of the very first imams that this whole idea of separating him from his Shias began by the Bani Abbasids. And we know that His death, of course, was death by poison. The ruler of the time fed him some grapes with some poison in it. But there's this one story when it comes to his musibah that's often told, and that connects to the death of his sister, Sayyidah Masama Qum. You know that Imam Qadim had 37 children. Imam Rada had a lot of siblings. But the love that this one sister had for him was well documented. When the distance between her and her brother got to the point where she couldn't take it anymore, she leaves Medina, Sayyidah Masama, and she makes her way towards Iran to go see her brother. And as history tells us, that they reached a place called SABA. SABA is a little bit outside of Qum. And there, the version says, or one version I've read at least, there could be multiple versions. One version is that this caravan gets looted, gets attacked by robbers. Sayyidah Masama, the sister of Imam Rada, becomes sick, and she makes her way to Qum, which was more of an established village than Save was, for treatment. When she enters Qum, she sees there are black flags all over the city. And she has no idea what happened. And the people of Qum, of course, which was mostly from day one a Shia town, welcomes, of course, the sister and the daughter of a Ma'soom. And when she asks them, why are these black flags up? They say, you don't know? She says, no, I don't know. She said, your brother Imam Rada has been shaheed, poisoned by grapes. They say that from the news of the shahadat of her brother, she fell very ill and she passed away in that state. Perhaps some say the shock value of hearing the news of the shahadat caused her to lose her life. And while we have the utmost respect for every musibah and masaib out there, the only thing I'll say to Bibi Masama Qum is this: that you heard about your brother's shahadat and it almost killed you. Come to the day of Ashura, there's a sister and a brother also on the day of Ashura. Ask the heart of Zainab, who's standing on Til Zainabiyah, 70 steps away from the place that Imam Hussein becomes killed, screaming at Umar bin Sa'ad that this is the son of Fatima you're about to kill. And she says that by Allah, I saw the legs of my brother moving left and moving right from the poison of the sword until I saw his head on the spear. The news of the shahadat of your brother killed you, Masuma, but come to Karbala in the heart of Zainab, who's witnessing one shahadat after one shahadat, but she makes her way to Sham. We offer our condolences to our 9th Imam tonight for the shahadat of his father. You know that these two were also miles and miles and miles away, and yet somehow, through the mu'jiza and the miracle of Allah, he made it to the point where he was able to give his father ghusl and kafan and bury him. The history says that when he consumed the grapes, on the second grape, Imam Rada realized that there was poison in his grapes. He stood up, he went back to his house. He told his servant, I'm going to my room and don't bother me. Let me rest very, very soundly and completely. And he says, after a while, when I heard conversations happening between two individuals in that room, and then I heard the crying of an individual in that room, I went inside that room. I saw my 8th Imam lying there on the ground, with coffin all over him, and the 9th Imam, a small little 8-year-old boy, at the head of his father, crying for his father. He was in Medina. This is Mashhad. Meaning what? That the son who was hundreds and hundreds of miles away was able to come and bury the father that was hundreds of miles away. I would say this to you. Again, your musibah is nothing less. We have the utmost respect for you. But how lucky are you, Imam Radha? How lucky are you, Imam Jawad, that you got to bury your father and you were buried by your son, even though the distance was hundreds of miles away. Come to the day of Ashura. There's a son, there's a father. Imam Sajjad is not hundreds of miles away. He's sitting at the head of his father's body, looking up to his Aunt Zainab and saying, Zainab, tell me one thing. Have you ever heard of a son who's leaving his father on the plains of Karbala, trampled, beheaded, the way I'm leaving my father? سيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. ماتم حسين.
Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein. I also want to accompany Qasim. I want to accompany Bani Hashim. I also want to accompany Qasim. I want to accompany Bani Hashim. I also want to accompany Qasim. I want to accompany Bani Hashim. Auntie, oh auntie, come and see. Uncle has fallen onto his knees, fallen off his horse and all alone. This is the time to help him, I must go. Don't go, my little one, amongst the rocks, amongst the spears, amongst the swords. Look what they did to little Ali here and Qasim there, these brutal hordes. Don't go, my little one, amongst the rocks, amongst the spears, amongst the swords. Look what they did to little Ali here and Qasim there, these brutal hordes. Auntie is holding Abdullah tightly back. With tiny fingers he wants to go attack. I also want to accompany Qasim. I want to accompany Bani Hashim. I also want to Qasim. I want to accompany Bani Hashim. Auntie, oh auntie, I can hear my father Hassan speaking in my ear. He says, Abdullah, go to your uncle. I am awaiting you, do not fear. Don't go, my Amana, my Abdullah, into the rain of sharp arrows. Uncle Abbas is nowhere to defend you, my tiny little rose. Don't go, my Amana, my Abdullah, into the rain of sharp arrows. Uncle Abbas is nowhere to defend you, my tiny little rose. Auntie is holding this tiny boy aback. His tiny voice begs, he wants to go attack. I also want to accompany Qasim. I want to accompany Bani Hashim. I also want to Qasim. I want to accompany Hashim. Auntie, oh auntie, I can see Qasim has appeared in front of me. He signaled to me to go and fight. He is now standing at my uncle's feet. Auntie, I have nobody left for me. I'm all alone, an orphan child. Uncle took care of me, who is left for me after my uncle's smile? Auntie, I have nobody left for me. I'm all alone, an orphan child. Uncle took care of me, who is left for me after my uncle's smile? Auntie is holding Abdullah tightly back. With tiny fingers he wants to go attack. I also want to accompany Qasim. I want to accompany Bani Hashim. I also want to I want to accompany Him. Auntie, oh auntie, can't you see? Uncle is lying on the sandy sea. Soldiers are kicking him left and right. Don't kill my uncle, oh you enemy. A voice sounds out from within the ditch. Don't come, my child, oh Abdullah. Hussein is watching Abdullah approach. He's blind with fear, Ya Allah. A voice sounds out from within the ditch. Don't come, my child, oh Abdullah. Hussein is watching Abdullah approach. He's blind with fear, Ya Allah. The final moments of this reception fall. On spears and swords this little child wails and crawls. I also want to accompany Qasim. I want to accompany Bani Hashim. I also want to accompany
حسين وويلا 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 حسين رديت وش رديت من ردينا أسهل بروح على الله وعلى سكينة معقولة منكم ما حد يلاقينا معقولة منكم ما حد يلاقينا يا ضامي قدامي أيتامك تحو سو فرحوا سو مرحوا غير هالسمو يا ضامي قدامي أيتامك تحو سو فرحوا سو مرحوا غير هالسمو غير هالسمو حسين وويلا حسين وويلا حسين وويلا حسين وويلا حسين وويلا حسين وويلا يا حسين حنيت القعدت وياكم يا حسين حنيت القعدت وياكم ثاريني مش مخدر بلياكم مو غالي وحيل علي مو غالي وحيل الحرخد علي مو غالي وحيل رخصت بجفاكم مو غالي وحيل رخصت بجفاكم يا لحمي ويا دمي ويا ابن امي رخصت مجتوفة ومعروفة وبالكوفة وقفت يا لحمي ويا دمي ويا ابن امي رخصت مجتوفة ومعروفة وبالكوفة وقفت بالكوفة وقفت بالكوفة وقفت يا حسين ما ويلا حسين وويلا حسين وويلا إليك حسين وويلا حسين وويلا حسين وويلا يا حسين والله ودعتك متعوبة عافيتي من أسيرتهم مسلوبة افتقيت علي افتاقيت من كربلاء جيت نوبة من روحي ولجروحي ظل نوحي ونين من روحي لجروحي ظل نوحي ونين شافوني وسبوني ما علي من روحي لجروحي ذل نوحي ونين شافوني وسلبوني يا ابن امي حسين من روحي لجروحي ذل نوحي ونين شافوني سلبوني يا ابن امي حسين يا ابن امي حسين حسين وويلا حسين وويلا حسين وويلا حسين وويلا حسين وويلا ود الله فرج ورجعت بحزاني، عتاب على اخويا وجبان اخلاني، ود الله فرج ورجعت بحزاني، اتبع لاخويا جباني وخلوني، ما ودعنا وحسه ما لاقاني، ما ودعنا حسه ما لاقاني، حبيته وباريته وربيت ايش كثر، جاباني وخلاني وعفاني ميسور، حبيته وراريته وربيت كشور، حبيته وباريته وربيت ايش كثر، جاباني وخلاني وعفاني ميسور، جاباني وخلاني وعفاني ميسور، حسين وويلاه حسين وويلاه حسين وويلاه حسين وويلاه حسين وويلاه حسين وويلاه.
السلام عليك يا رسول الله. السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء. السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين جميع شهداء كربلاء ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا غريب الغرباء سلطان أبو الحسن يا علي بن موسى الرضا، كن شفيئنا وشفيع والدنا في يوم الجزاء ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليكم يا صاحب العصر والزمان. السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن. السلام عليكم مزهر الإيمان عجل الله تعالى فرجه. السلام عليكم يا أهل بيت النبوة جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته.